Good evening, and welcome to your obligatory Halloween upload. Thanks to, I guess, shonen anime, the story arc as an idea is often attributed to a place, a location, or a big event. The first staple story arc I ever experienced was all three. Welcome to Vampire Mountain! Even in death, may you be triumphant. Yeah, if it's not obvious from my adult interests, my childhood series was the Saga of Darren Shan. As far as I'm concerned, Darren O'Shaughnessy is one of the masters, one of my favourite writers living today, and among the dead, and undead respectively. When 13-year-old schoolboy Darren Shan discovers an ancient vampire performing amongst other acts in a freak show, Darren decides to steal this vampire's property, and as a result, his life ends. His human life. And his first years of half-vampire servitude involve travels around the human world, staying to the shadows and learning his ways. Renfield, that's what we call grooming. It's a strange, strained relationship, as I'm sure you can imagine. But the two of them are about to take a step into vampire territory. And much like its other YA contemporaries, its familiars, it's a tonal turning point that we're never going to be able to walk back out of. This arc, sometimes dubbed Vampire Rites, makes you realise that the 3 books before this was Darren Shan with the training wheels on. That's kind of hard to believe. There's child death in this one. Vampire Mountain is the beginning of the second trilogy, and it's what takes us away from mistrusting adventures around Europe to a pretty epic, unforgiving saga. We don't get any more fun adventures after this. Darren and his new travelling companions make a deadly trek up a mountain that no mortal could possibly survive. It's already an obstacle course, a trial, and the first book is just an environmental threat. There's really not even a villain. Even under the tutelage of senior vampires, Darren is not safe at any single point from here on. Crepsley's starting to feel guilty for the blooding at this point. They're forming some kind of bond, but not enough that he won't just leave him for dead. Hey, but don't get too comfy on that wolf-infested, icy death trap. Inside the mountain is much, much worse. But it's also one of my favourite places in fiction. A whole vampire society, a congregational meeting place of drunken bar brawls, cavernous death traps, and royal throne rooms. There's a whole history of the vampire legacy in here that we as the reader, and through Darren, haven't been privy to at all. We've been fed little bits of information very, very naturally. The enemy Vampanese, these strange little people, and the one who talks. Darren learns he's got a new kinship with wolves thanks to his new vampire blood. This really should be a lore dump as we meet the 3 grand vampire princes. We've gone from the world being a closed mystery that Mr. Crepsley won't talk about, to him forcing Darren out of the pan and into the fire. The opening ceremony is a big bar brawl. This alone should kill Darren, but he jumps headfirst into it. There's a whole brand new cast of characters, some of them red herrings, some of them my favourite fictional character ever created, yeah. And because of the unique pacing, this first book can just be a chill-out session in this horrific, deadly environment that these vampires call home. To them, they're having a great time. To Darren, he's got to learn quick. And it's the studious element of Darren I really like. He's an apprentice character, in that he's learning and taking notes even when you don't think he is, and he's your narrator. Darren's paying more attention than you, and as a kid that always made me feel like I wouldn't be able to survive this environment, making Darren a really unique kind of lead. Mostly a good kid audience avatar. But then you remember what got him into this mess in the first place. Stealing from a vampire. Vampire theft. What kind of person, what kind of kid would it take to flourish in this sordid environment? And that's what I always liked about Darren Shan. Even the most relatable, down-to-earth character kind of has that dog in him. Considering he's only a little half-vampire baby, Darren should probably be thinking about laying low to survive this book, but instead he challenges the strongest duelist to a one-on-one cage match. Look, if there's one thing I want my characters to be, it's sexy, but if there's a second thing I want them to be, it's headstrong. Darren adapts to vampire culture perfectly because he's a headstrong, noble idiot. And that's exactly what this world respects. But hey, not everybody. Enter the 3 vampire lords and oh, Darren has to be put to death. Lion Crepsley's mistake comes home to roost. Darren was too young to be blooded. What could have possibly drawn the enigmatic Mr. Crepsley to making such an obvious violation of their laws? Well, see, he doesn't know. And now, 3-4 books of his solemn, distant nature suddenly make sense. The vampire's apprentice is too young to have built up any valor, and by this ancient code he must be put to the spikes. Killed. Did I mention that these are really relentless books? Anyway, so to survive, Darren has to go through a goblet of fire, if you will. Round after round of crystal maze death matches. Fighting a blooded vampire boar, escaping a flooded maze, with a boulder attached to your leg. This room's just fire. It's just made out of fire. I don't think I've seen a character in fiction take a more unwarranted beating, just round after round, with no regenerative abilities. Esteemed vampires even fall to the trials whilst trying to build up more valor. Never mind this halfling kid. He got here last month. And so the strategy becomes, how can we play for time? How can we pull some strings and get Darren another day of rest so he doesn't die before the next one? There's a great use of time that makes this story feel immense. The trials are only about 150 pages, but they don't feel it. But it's thanks to the little bit of respect that he's earned around the Vampire Mountain that people are coming in to help him. Oh yeah, I'm the games master. I can train you up. We can prepare you for, I don't know, like 10 of the stages. Here, come on, I'll teach you how to hold your breath. Make them remember you, seems to become the sentiment of the whole ordeal. And because this arc is so bloodthirsty, so intense, so mean-spirited in its unfairness, Darren does what really any of us would do, and runs away. But that's when. A backstabbing. A murder. Conspiracy, even. The most likeable side character in the book stabs the second most likeable character in the book. At the midpoint of the arc, when things seemed at their lowest, Darren Shan finds a way to pull the carpet out underneath you even more. Look, Darren, I'm trying to save our race, not condemn it. Gavin's death is regrettable, but when I explain properly...
To hell with your explanations! You're a traitor! And a murderer! Scum! Stay back!
I'm unarmed. I don't care. I'll kill you anyway.
You deserve it.
In the most desperate moment I can imagine for a protagonist, spiraling into a literal whirlpool, Darren decides he's bloodlusted. Vampire gods, welcome me into your arms. Smile upon my death and exact a terrible revenge against the traitor Kurda and his allies. All sound and light vanished as I was sucked into darkness, churning madness, and I plunged deeper and deeper into the hungry belly of Vampire Mountain. Environmental metaphor. Darren Shan takes on the true nature, the true code of his new people. But it gets even sadder when you find out that Vampire Prince Prospect, Vampanese sympathizer Kurda Smout, backstabbing traitor, my favourite character in fantasy, has a very valid social cause of his own. He's going to unite the Vampanese back with the vampires. Now, a Vampanese was a major villain of a previous arc. We have the same biases as Darren. But Kurda is the only character in this goddamn series playing the long game, and every single book after this is going to vindicate him. Kurda has snuck in their blood enemy as refugees living inside the mountain, leaving it to Darren to climb back up the mountain, putting everything he's learned to use, otherwise he dies, get back into the mountain, pick a side, the backstabbing Kurda with good intentions, or the vampires who sentenced a young innocent boy to death. And it just kills me. It kills me how a character can go from absolute zero to his highest points. The vampire princes reflect on Darren. They reflect on everything he's done since getting to the society, how quickly he's adapted, the massive, massive action of putting his own life on the line to people he owes nothing to save them from an uprising. That's their language. That's something vampires understand. After lengthy debates, they decide they cannot alter their laws. The Vampire Council cannot change. But in this economy of respect, the princes realize they don't need to change their laws. There's actually a loophole. Never!
Anyone wishing to lay hands on my assistant will first have to lay his hands on me.
Use your head, Larton. Who among us are immune to punishment? Who could fail the trials and walk away untouched? Above the law? You cannot mean.
He is too young. He's not a general. He's not even a full vampire.
They elect to make Darren Shan from a humble nobody straight to a vampire prince. And every single vampire in the Great Hall voted for it.
Gentlemen, this is Democracy Manifest.
Vampire democracy! Darren accepts, and the initiation mixes his blood with the blood of every single vampire in existence. He is now one of them, at the cost of some of his closest friends. And Kurda takes it. Doesn't deny the charges. He's disappointed in Darren. Don't get me wrong, Kurda's been mentoring him just like everybody else has. And if you go back, there were clues of him trying to lead a trail to his world philosophy. Kurda is about 6 books ahead, and Darren is sadly about 2 behind.
That's my son! That's my boy!
He's a medic, a nurse in the trenches of World War II, whilst all of the other vampires were hunting humans and picking up scraps. And the vampires look down on him for this. Kurda respects Darren. He respects his youthfulness, his naivety. He respects him because he's not one of them yet. And that's why he calmly, peacefully accepts his defeat and walks to his own death. Even in death, may I be triumphant. My god, it's a big arc. And it's incredulous to get a character from the bottom rung straight to Hokage, you know? Pirate King. It's a feat I don't think many other universes, many other authors could pull off. What a killer read. Destiny waits for Darren Shan. I think Darren Shan as a writer is the sole reason I myself wanted to become a writer. Things went a bit differently, but that's fine, because I would never ever want to face up to the task of one-upping the saga of Darren Shan. J.K. Rowling, more like J.K. Rowling in her grave. Calling Darren Shan young adult fiction does it a disservice. It's youthful, desperate stuff. That little bit more close to the mark and gritty than I was probably ready for at the time of reading, but I'm so grateful I did now. If you've only got 1 day left to live, I recommend reading Procession of the Dead. If you've got a week left to live, I recommend the Saga.